Hello, everybody. Welcome to Folk 2103 Custom. Custom is an essential part of folklore study, but more importantly, it's an essential part of how we are in the world. Custom can range, or you can describe customary behavior as anything from things as sort of small as habits, routines, not necessarily the brushing of teeth, but like the contemplation that you might do uh, when you're brushing your teeth, or sort of daily small things. Morning prayer is probably a good example for those who practice morning prayer, and it can go from those fairly small aspects to elaborate, very rare, and yet highly coordinated moments where usually it's not simply the group, but the state or the large infrastructure has some kind of ceremonial thing. I'm thinking of like the investiture of a new sovereign, like the coronation, for example, where there's an elaborate performance. But they're all, everywhere in between is basically a range of performances, what folklorists tend to call performances, where there is some kind of, within each group, there is some kind of implicit script. This is the way we celebrate this thing. And then the question is, well, what is this thing? And this thing is usually a signal of some kind of change. So this course, and this will make sense as I go along, but this course focuses on two very large groups of customs. So we're not going to talk about the habitual everyday, although that is relevant. And we're not going to talk about the extraordinarily rare. We're going to talk about two large groups. One are the rites of passage, and that is the movement of an individual through various stages of their life. And those stages are contextually determined by the group itself. But basically, you have one particular status, and you move from that status to the other, or to another, by often simply by aging and hitting different levels of biological maturity, or by attaining some kind of socially sanctioned rank within the group. That is independent, perhaps, of biological development, but has sort of, parallel associations. So things like getting married, or getting a new job, or moving away. So those are things that happen to the individual, but it is the group that gathers together and has a formalized, very lowercase f in formalized, but has a set pattern of activities that mark that person's special transitional status. And the first half of the semester, we're going to be talking about rites of passage, no problem. And the second group are calendar customs. And those are organized, as calendar might suggest, around the calendar year and the idea, and the solar year, and the idea that there is a cycle that is associated. Now, calendar customs might have some kind of grounding in the changing seasons, and certainly they are evocative and rooted in those, but it's not exclusive to that, because we also talk about calendar customs that are independent of, or at least they are more focused on social calendrical things than harvest calendrical things. Things like university graduation. The group is set up to that more or less the end of April, beginning of May, we start to see people leaving the university, and there are ways of commemorating that. Now, You can make an argument that the school system has its origins in the harvest year, but it is so independent of it at the same time that it starts to be very tenuous to insist on a harvest association with graduation. However, going back to the basic idea, it's one of the things that's present in calendar custom is the idea of the cycle, and that regularly at this time we gather together. And it is unlike a rite of passage. It is not a particular person transitioning from one stage to another. It is typically the group, and sometimes it's like the group, like graduation, graduates. So like the whole point is that there is a cohort. But more than anything, it is just a time for the group to reassemble and mark this time for whatever reason. And one of the ways they mark it is that they celebrate it very much the way it was celebrated last year, very much the way it was celebrated a generation ago, very much the way it was celebrated, at least in theory, several generations ago. It becomes this reaffirmation of the group's persistence in time, despite the fact that individual members of the group might have moved on. They might have had their passages, they might have moved away, they might have died. And so, whereas the rite of passage is the movement of the individual through the group, present in the idea of the rite of passage is that the group refreshes itself regularly. And the calendar custom, it's not focused on the individual per se, it's focused on the group's sense of self and the group's sense of continuity in time, despite the fact that its individual members might ebb and flow. The group has constancy, even if 50 years hence, there is no one present in this group who was present in the group. There will be no one present in the group who is present in the group now. But that sense of groupness is passed along through custom. And so because these are our two things, basically this course is divided nicely in half. And we start with the rites of passage because it also helps us with some elemental ideas like the structure of how these events take place. And then the second half of the semester, we move to calendar customs. The way the course is laid out is, and it's my preferred way of teaching, is basically, and the way it's laid out in this asynchronous distance delivery model is that there's a couple of structural lectures that provide some kind of introduction to the various sections, and there's lectures. It's me sitting basically on a bench somewhere, but it provides the closure of the section and then an introduction to the next one. And otherwise, we'll be doing article readings. I have a number of articles. I think I have like 16 or 18 articles. I think if I do the math right in my head, that's correct. 18 articles, I think. 9 for rites of passage and 9 for calendar customs. And there's an order to them. They sort of, progress in some kind of natural order, but they're all independent of each other. They are all articles. So they are explorations of a particular custom or a particular rite in a particular place at a particular time. And so what I've been doing since COVID is creating these, for all my classes, creating these introductory, explainer videos for these articles. And the content of them is important for the class. It's the stuff that you are going to be quizzed on, and I'll talk about quizzes in a second. It's the stuff that is going to help illustrate and give you insight into these various patterns that comprise custom. On the other hand, they're not going to make a huge amount of cross-reference to in fact, they're not going to make any cross-reference to other articles in the chain, because the idea is that someone else can, who's not teaching a course in custom, but might be interested in, say, a popular culture project can take the exploratory video, the explainer video, and use it in their own classes. And so they have this sort of community. And it has happened already in the past year that people who are very outside the field of folklore found the video and use it in their class and so on. So they stay independent. But you have first access to them. So I still maintain the basic structure of the semester. Every class has a video associated with it as if we were meeting twice a week for 12 weeks. The syllabus is up on the Moodle page. I don't know how you would be seeing this video were it not for the Moodle page, so I presume you have access to it. Read it. The expectations, the work expectations for the semester are fairly slight. Not slight, that's inappropriate, but they are modest. They're reasonably straightforward. I have these weekly quizzes that are basically, they're very easy. They're multiple choice questions. They are not gotcha questions. They are, but they do require you doing the readings because you need to do the readings. Doing the readings is a good thing. I know people have, some kind of, especially with an asynchronous course, sometimes there's problems with scheduling. So basically they open at the end of the week, and then they are available for, I think I have them set for, they're available for 3 weeks. So you have plenty of time. If you run slow, if something happens, you have plenty of time to catch up. And the quizzes are very short. They will take you minimal. They'll take you maximal 10 minutes, if that. And that's that's really if you like read the question and then you like, and flip, and find the answers. Plenty of time. It's a nice, simple, easy 20%. And then I have 2 assignments, and I realize that if I really take it seriously, that in a way I'm doing 2 mini courses within this one course. They are weighted equally. It's just one happens earlier than the later. So it's not really a small assignment than a big assignment. They're 2 equally weighted assignments. One is an assignment about the rites of passage. The description is in the syllabus, but basically it is describing a rite of passage that you have some kind of familiarity with. And as ever in folklore, it's really good to look at the specifics. So don't look at something like weddings. Look at a particular wedding, a wedding that you have been to recently, or a graduation party that you were at recently, but looking at the specific. And then putting that specific into the context of how weddings are celebrated in your group in general, how weddings might be celebrated in North America in general, and overall the structures of the rites of passage that we see. So you can go from micro to macro in an interesting way. And it's like, because as I said, these are all scripts. Fundamentally, the group has a way of doing things, but that way of doing things is not something that you need to have absolute adherence to. They are open to interpretation, they're open to personalization, they're open to adaptation because of circumstances, and that's the basic tension, the creative tension of folklore, is that conservatism and dynamism. Conservatism means that you kind of want to keep things the way that they have been before, not because you have to, but because you want to, because you want that consistency in time. And dynamism is I want to make it alive and vibrant and not be wholly beholden to how it has been done in the past. And really, that's it. Now, some groups are more tend towards the more conservative, but even then, there is adaptation. And some groups tend towards the dynamism, but even then, there's a certain amount of echo of what happened before. And we're going to see that. We're going to see you see new customs emerge all the time. We have 2 calendar customs, for example. In the second part, I know I'm describing the rite of passage assignment and then immediately talking about calendar customs, but it works. And that new things emerge all the time. New things emerge. And we don't necessarily, and we figure out a way of celebrating them, or we incorporate them into things that have already gone before. Similarly, new rites of passage emerge. You might not think about that, but sometimes ceremonies happen, or people say this would be a good thing to celebrate. We don't talk about this, but a friend of mine has noted that among her friends in California, and really her, the sort of strange cohort where she was a teenager but started seeing this around the friends in families where we're talking about who had children in they're 3 and 4 and 5. People started instituting a last carry celebration, where basically that point, the last time that a child will be regularly picked up is probably quite shocking for a kid. It's like, oh, if I'm tired, someone isn't going to pick me up, or I'm not going to be lovingly placed in a stroller. It's like, no, this is the time when you are self-ambulatory. Cool. So they make a celebration of it. They gather together. The child is the focus of this, and everyone basically picks up the kid and walks them around the room one last time, and that's kind of neat. So we have these new celebrations all the time. So the rite of passage is take one, and then, as always in folklore, you look at the specific and you put it into the context of the general. And the more specific, the better. Calendar custom assignment is kind of the same. The thing about both of these is that because we're working within the limitation of a semester system, it's not necessarily that simple to do pure ethnographic work. I mean, because you can't schedule these things. Calendar custom, you sort of can. We begin calendar custom just before the end of October, and so there's going to be stuff like Halloween. There's going to be stuff like Remembrance Day, and there's going to be, well, that's probably it. Between mid-October, if you really think ahead, you could do Thanksgiving and sort of hold it over. But it's you can't necessarily plan these things. And conversely, for rite of passage, you might not be going to a wedding in the first 6 weeks of this semester, or the first half of this semester. So we are looking at the human condition where they temporarily get together and do things, but the timing of the school year doesn't necessarily allow or not allow, that's not the right word. It doesn't necessarily mean that this getting together is going to happen in a convenient way for you. So if you happen to have something, cool. But a calendar custom. Similar to the rite of passage assignment, think of something very specific, how this group celebrates this particular thing. At this one instance of it, take it out a little step, how they celebrated it this year, how it's been celebrated in the past, and how it changes. I actually break that down into a couple of questions. And they're all more or less entry points into the same general idea. So one is begin with the calendar custom, kind of what I said. One is see how material culture might be a way. So you can think about decoration, costume, but we often manifest these things not simply through action, but through object. And you really see that in, just think about just think about decorating your house at Christmas. What's that all about? Well, that is a way of reaffirming the consistency of and the ongoing artistic participation. Is both idiosyncratic because it's one individual, but it's one individual doing something that ostensibly the entire group is doing, and then you have it's participatory because you have the regular customary behavior of let's drive around and look at the lights, and so it becomes this ongoing prospect. One is about technology, and how technology has changed how we do how we do customs, how we do rites of passage. We have a lot of international students, and who, I mean, there is a simulacrum of important cultural events that takes place through the international students organizations on campus. But one of the ways that happens is through the benefit of things like satellite and an internet, and that they can also be participating vicariously in the celebrations as they might take place in their countries of origin. Similarly, birthdays, or I always say in papers, never do birthdays, but Christmases, when people are away. Well, now we have FaceTime, which isn't a replacement, but it is an adaptation. And so technology has entered into this really interesting way of how we are virtually being brought together, even if circumstances mean that we cannot literally be brought together. And then we adapt. And then this year I also had, I've added the question about COVID-19, because we've now had a year and a half, and as of the time I'm recording this, and the issue is how have rites of passage, calendar customs being adapted, ignored, transformed, whatever, absent. I mean, perhaps it's like just can't happen, or replaced, and replacing in not in desultory ways, but in quite joyously celebratory ways. And so that's it. Two mini essays. They're not particularly long, and one is due basically just after reading week, and one is due at the end of the semester. And then there's one final take-home exam, which is a synthetic question. There will be options given, but it's again a small, even smaller than the assignments, small reflective question where you sort of bring your understanding to the table. And that's it. That's the course. We don't currently have plans, at least a schedule to meet, but I have discovered, much to my confusion, that people actually want to talk to me. One of the things is that I have this remarkable flair for looking like I have self-confidence, but I'm always surprised when people want to spend any time with me whatsoever. And so I'm presuming that they actually kind of want to spend time with other students. So I'm going to be figuring out in the first week or two a way of asking people if and how often they would like to gather together, as it were, and hang out. I don't know if we necessarily need to do every week. Maybe we do. But because we have not preordained a time, that might be a scheduling nightmare. But maybe we have just a couple of big gatherings in some kind of mutually conducive time slot, and we go from there. We'll figure this out. I am very available by email. I am going to determine my drop-in office hours, which I guess will be on Zoom. And I will have a link to that. I'll have those hours clearly up on the site once the sort of the pattern of the week is set for me, and I can figure out when my availability is. And otherwise, that's kind of it. I have a semester making videos, but more than anything, I mean, a university class should really ultimately perfectly just be about reading, and you just read, and then you gather together and you figure something out about it. So enjoy the readings. I've chosen them because they're interesting. I've chosen them because they're illustrative, and I've chosen them because they have something to say. I have new ones this year, ones I've never taught. I always try and add new ones and get rid of old ones. And the new ones I also try to make actually new research. Sometimes they are new to me, but older readings, just cause. But yeah, I try to make it as international as I can. I try to make it as representative as I can. I don't do much in Atlantic Canada or Canada in general. But I also try not to focus too much on any of the Anglo world. But I am limited in terms of accessibility of reading materials and what is out there. So enjoy. These are fun. Not everyone's a great writer, but the content is always kind of cool. I don't have anything else to say. I fear that I've been speaking for too long anyway. So I am going to stop. I will have the introductory to Rites of Passage video up soonish. But meanwhile, welcome to the semester. I hope you are well. I hope you are safe. And I hope you are excited. Well, as excited as you can be talking to a boring person like myself. Take care, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.